What's up, nerds? Welcome to this special character profile edition of Them Nerds. Be forewarned, if you haven't watched the second episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier yet, turn back now because ahead there be spoilers. Sorry for that. Anyway, as many of us hypothesized, we met both Isaiah Bradley and his grandson Elijah on the second episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. While Elijah wasn't named and didn't have much of a part in the episode, comic fans know him as Patriot, leader of the Young Avengers. Isaiah, though, got a very poignant introduction, and we'll get into his apparent place in the MCU in just a moment. But first, let's talk about the character's history on the pages of Marvel Comics. Isaiah Bradley was one of hundreds of black soldiers to be experimented upon in an attempt to create a super soldier serum as part of Project Rebirth. This project would retroactively be named as part of the Weapon 1 program, which also gave us the Weapon X program, which gave us Wolverine and Phantom X, as well as Deadpool. Only a handful of the soldiers in Isaiah's test group survived these experiments, and they would be sent out in an all-black regiment to fight on the front lines of World War II. They never received the adoration, support, or accolades that Steve Rogers did because the world, quite frankly, wasn't ready for superpowered black men. In one fateful mission, Bradley and a couple of his compatriots were supposed to follow Steve Rogers into battle to liberate a German death camp. Bradley's fellow soldiers ended up imploding and fighting amongst themselves, and Captain America's vessel had been trapped by a monsoon in the Pacific, leaving Bradley the only one available to carry out the mission. Angry at his circumstances and his station in the grand scheme of things, Isaiah stole a uniform meant for Cap and went in on his own, dressed as the familiar hero. He was captured by the Nazis and was even presented to Hitler himself, who planned to dissect Bradley, reverse engineer his genetic makeup, and send his parts back to the US in a box as a message. Isaiah was eventually rescued by members of the German resistance who helped smuggle him out. Upon returning to the States, Isaiah was court-martialed and spent 17 years in prison before being pardoned by President Eisenhower. During his time in prison, the government experimented on him to try to better understand his abilities and refine the reproduction of them for future super soldiers. The combined effects of the serum and his imprisonment degraded Isaiah's mind over the years to the point where he died with the mental capacity of a 6-year-old. Isaiah would be a folk hero among the black community, and especially among Marvel's black heroes. He was a guest of honor at Black Panther and Storm's wedding, and Luke Cage called Isaiah, quote, the first me. His impressive legacy is continued in Marvel Comics through the actions of his grandson Elijah, aka Patriot, as he leads the Young Avengers. On The Falcon and the Winter Soldier Episode 2, Bucky and Sam went to visit Isaiah, who Sam knew nothing about. We learn that Isaiah in the MCU continuity was a super soldier serving in the Korean War, ironically, also known as the Forgotten War. We also learn that he was imprisoned for 30 years, not 17 as in the comics, and that he had a memorable battle with Bucky when Bucky was working for the Soviets as the Winter Soldier, where Isaiah tore off half of Bucky's metallic arm. Rocket Raccoon would be proud. We learn that Isaiah felt used, abused, and thrown away by the government, and that he has absolutely no desire to talk to Bucky and Sam and wants nothing to do with anything super soldier related. Now, as of the recording of this content, we don't know what else will become of Isaiah or his grandson Elijah in the MCU, but one thing is certain. The MCU is going to tackle the dark past of racism in America through the lens of a super soldier no less brave or heroic than Steve Rogers, but who was treated very differently, very poorly. We will see the parallels between real-world events like the horrific Tuskegee experiments and the mistreatment of the black super soldier candidates. Will these revelations and connections be a driving force in Sam reclaiming the shield and taking up the mantle of Captain America? We will soon find out. Thanks for joining us today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, comment below, let us know what you think. Follow us on social media at WeThemNerds, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for a chance to win this Baron Zemo Funko Pop. That's all from us today. Thanks, nerds. Be good. Be good to each other. Later.